So, dear folks of Baba, I have heard serious concerns from Baba lovers representing a variety of gender identifications about this overly male dominated world, sorry, and its poignant lack of empathy and compassion. The feminine qualities. Society has become increasingly impersonal nowadays, and I have often thought in this Advent, Baba has emphasized God in human form, the personal, which is desperately needed to counteract the domination of the mind and its impersonal achievements. Sorry. In some of his previous Advents, he has directed us to the impersonal, formless manifestations of the divine, such as Allah, Nirvana, Yezdan, and Jehovah, an orientation that I assume was appropriate and necessary during those periods of human history. The terms masculine and feminine can easily evoke a gender conflict, but Baba asserts that both of these qualities are in each one of us. If our identification with the gender of our body is too strong, that is, if we identify as strictly male, then the feminine qualities in us get repressed. The same is true for the feminine. Baba says when both the masculine and feminine are fully developed in us, we are approaching realization. What are the qualities associated with the masculine and feminine? Baba says broadly that the masculine in us excels in qualities of head and will, quote unquote, and the feminine in qualities of the heart, quote unquote. Those who balance both qualities in himself or herself will have a more integrated experience of themselves. Speaking very simplistically, the masculine in us is generally considered assertive and goal-oriented, while the feminine is receptive and relationship-oriented. The masculine, in Baba's words, relies on the mind with its sound judgment, quote unquote, steadfast purpose and will, and the feminine on the heart with its feelings, empathy, and intuitions. They are capable of intense love, devotion, and any sacrifice. The masculine in us, in my view, tends to seek Baba in oneself, and the feminine seeks to find Baba in each other. Helen Dahm, the woman who painted the murals in his tomb back in the late 1930s, early 40s, complained to Baba about her emotional discomfort in being among so many other women Mandli at Upper Mehrabad. She tended to be antisocial, but he told her, the path is through people. And in his last message on the alphabet board in October 1954, Baba said that his lovers would realize the truth by being bound to each other with internal links. To me, this means that during this period in history, Baba is encouraging us to find him in each other, the feminine and personal, and he would refer to us as his Baba family. Paradoxically, it is possible for a woman to be very masculine and a man to be quite feminine. Neither gender has a monopoly on the expression of the masculine and the feminine. How do these qualities play out in you? Have you seen Baba working in you to develop the qualities that are usually considered the opposite of your gender? Have you found that because of the outer stereotypical and cultural definitions and restrictions of gender, the process of balancing the masculine and feminine within has been more challenging and difficult? Due to pressure or even fear from society's norms, sometimes our various gender qualities may be repressed in us. Baba has said that an effort has to be made to balance these gender qualities within. While seeking this balance in the case of a man, Baba says it is important that he tries to understand a woman, not through the eyes of the male, but through an imaginative reaching out toward what the woman feels herself to be in her own personal experience. The same is true for women. Over decades, there seemed to be two concurrent paths: the traditional stereotypical male and female gender roles alongside growing trends of individual expression. In what ways do you see variations on the traditional stereotypes? What looks and behaviors would have been unheard of just a few decades ago? Could this in any way be moving toward balancing out the attributes that Baba refers to? Where was I? Could it be that the current questioning and expressions of gender today is the soul's attempt to balance the masculine and feminine qualities within? Have you been affected adversely by the stereotypical definition of your gender? In what ways? How does the societal culture of your country play into the experience of your gender? Could Baba be making an invaluable distinction between masculine and feminine qualities rather than the more limiting male and female genders? In that case, is there more room for acceptable overlap? For example, a strong-minded, take-charge woman or a receptive, devotional man? Haven't we already begun loosening the ways we see others? What role does detachment from gender play in balancing out our inner nature? The mind, with all its creations, the development of new inventions, societal hierarchies, the whole digital world, and labor-saving devices has not brought us closer to each other. It may be that simple personal love and interest in each other from heart to heart, as Baba has expressed, may be what saves us from the alienation and isolation that is so rampant in the world today. What is needed as an antidote to this growing trend, as Baba has said, is a fusion of interpersonal love, our sense of duty, and personal love for those who receive our intimate attention, which he says ultimately culminates in divine love. In his love, Jeff.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I think you were probably visiting your grandchildren, right, or something?
Yes,
Last week.
it's been a busy couple of weeks. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
So I just thought I would mention that for those of you who met the Mandalay, I always found they were a very, very balanced of their masculine and feminine. The men were strong, but they had that soft inner nature. They were and the women Mandalay I felt were quite strong. Besides being entirely empathetic and present for us. The one who really seemed very masculine and didn't really show his softer side was, I would say, Padre. I mean, he was very tender, but he didn't exactly display it or express it. And then Mara, who was like the embodiment, I would say, of the highest of the female qualities. I mean, par excellence. So she was quite different and unique in that respect, I would say. But Erich used to say from time to time in Mandalay Hall, it's the masculine side of us that gets us to the beloved's door, and it's the feminine in us that embraces him when we see him. Anyway, so those are a couple of comments. But anybody care to venture out on this particular topic? Aha.
Ron.
Yeah, I was thinking about it today after I read what you wrote, Jeff. And what I was thinking is that you use the expression gender identification. And I was thinking, personally, I don't really want to identify as anything in particular, because that's what the ego likes to do. And it kind of seems like it just would build up the ego if I were going to consciously identify and then try to live in accord with my identity as a gender. But rather, I think that this whole balancing of and working out of our sanskaras is really Baba's job to bring them to the surface in just the way he thinks is best for us, for us to contend with. So I like the idea of just trying to be honest and be natural in the way we express ourselves with regard to femininity or masculinity. If we do something that's one way or the other, so be it. And the thing is not necessarily going to last for any particular period of time. It's a temporary thing, just like our body is temporary. But this feeling of the way we act toward other people and speak to other people and the way we can comport ourselves in society and all that, I think being natural will give Baba an invitation to bring out some sanskaras and then wipe them away, which is what his job is. And I'm kind of up for that.
So you'll say you saying that it will should happen automatically from Baba without any proactive efforts on our part.
The only proactive is just to invite whatever feels natural in a particular situation. If it's being if what's called for is being tender to the individual in this particular set of circumstances, then that's what I figure I should do. If I move to do that, and I think Baba would be pleased by it, and if he turns out he's not pleased, he'll let me know, and then I can adjust it, in the future.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I got it. I got you there. I'm a little bit more on the proactive spectrum, but but yeah. Anyone else? I mean, looking at history, I mean, the incredible aggression and wars and everything that have gone on and on. That's very much of the masculine side asserting itself. I would like to see that softened somehow, but anyone
Jeff,
else?
what do you mean by Jeff? What do you mean by being more proactive yourself? You said personally yourself should be more proactive. What does that look like in everyday life?
Well, you could be a little bit more sensitive and, like where Baba said, the imaginative reaching out for what a woman feels in her experience, in her own personal experience, rather than just me seeing always through the male lens. Making an effort to get a little more interested in where women are coming from, as they in their own experience. That's just a proactive thing rather than just continuing on the same old stuff, the same old. That's one way.
Don't you think that men have it hard because if they're too much that way, then we may get defensive that they're coming on or they want something or all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It seems like it's a balance. Maybe not so much for my life now because I'm at the end of my life, but during my life, that kind of thing between the masculine and feminine of intimacy, but being safe and drawing back, like, well, what is it? What do they really want? Type of inner conversation,
Yeah, you can be kind of try to be aware of how a woman experiences herself in her own life without having to be demonstrative about it.
Have you told men that?
What's that?
Have you told men that?
I would, I'd be, I mean,
I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking.
I would say the men have become more
Yeah.
gentle
Yeah,
and
they
more
have.
receptive in recent decades than they were when I was growing up. I mean, the hard drinking, smoking,
Yeah.
kind of, and pretty, I don't know, in some ways, kind of a little bit primitive in their approach. I'm talking about the 50s. It's improved a lot, I would say. Anyone else? Oh, good.
Tina.
Um, I was reading what you wrote, Jeff, and you said, Baba says when both the masculine and feminine are fully developed and as we are approaching realization.
Yes.
How do we do that?
Well,
Did he say how we do that? How do we develop both?
well, I mean, it in a
It's a little
way
tongue
is
in cheek. Yeah.
trying to develop the, say, your masculine side. You might be a little shy or in a group to speak up because there are a lot of other men. Um, I mean, there are a lot of different ways you can get out of the stereotypical female thing, be a little bit more assertive, a little bit more, not just be devotional under your boss and all
Yeah.
of that thing. You stand on the truth within.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is just the beginning of this discussion because, but there are a lot of different ways. Um, I think taking a deeper interest in one another, a
Mm,
personal interest, you learn a lot about anyone, but whether they, about men and women and children and older people. I think one of the things I see it lacking today is a lack of personal interest in one another.
Hmm.
There's
yeah, I agree.
friendliness, but friendliness is quite superficial compared to personal interest.
Yeah, I agree with
If I
that.
go to the dentist, they say, "Oh, the receptionist said, "Oh, Mr. Wolverton, come in. They're waiting for you." Blah blah. But if I run into that receptionist in the grocery store and I say hello, I mean, she's like, "Who's this guy?" Because it's a professional friendliness, but it's not personal. She
Yeah.
hasn't connected with me with any interest. I'm just, another patient, you might say.
I just as a little aside, I was listening to a podcast recently about the decline of friendship in the United States, which I think relates to this. And they've definitely have studies back from like the 1950s, and they're documented that friendship really started to decline around the 1950s when the advent of the television. So obviously the internet has accelerated that, right? Because people are so distracted by their screens, but
And cell phones.
and cell phones, yeah, of
Who,
course.
who needs
Technology.
friends? Who needs friends
Yeah.
when you have Google?
Yeah, yeah, or social media. But yeah, I think what you're saying is absolutely correct, and that groups like these are so important where people are just, talking to each other face to face and getting to know each other, because it's a hard thing to do these days, with everybody in front of their screens, right?
Yeah.
Disconnected from each other. So anyway,
Yeah. No,
yeah.
thanks.
Hmm.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Patty.
Oh, okay. I guess I wasn't. Am I muted?
No,
No?
you're good.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone. You know, this is a wonderful topic, but I think it has threads that could go lots of places. in the fabric of anyone's life here. And I'm just going to focus on a couple things because really, I think what is being asked is very complex in diversifying how we could even talk about this, because there'd be so many other points of view and lenses generationally, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And I think from my generation, I'm going to just cite a couple of things that happened that I was aware of in the early years. And I have mentioned this before, so forgive me for repeating it, but it applies to this. Coming to India in the early years in 73, 74, 76, those years, as naive and as innocent as I was, I didn't even think of being a female or a male. I mean, and it wasn't until I started reading about reincarnation and different lives and what Baba said about it, all that kind of stuff, was I even identifying as Patty through the mind, to think about it. And one day I went up on the hill, and the daughters of, was it Kaikobad? Who
Yeah.
was the guy in the
Gulu and
wheelchair?
Jalu.
Kaikabad.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. He was being rolled out, assisted, to come out to where the samadhi was. And I was coming up the hill, and so he stopped. The daughter asked me, and I didn't know who he was because I was still not really aware of who he was. And his daughter said, he spoke to his daughter first, and she turned around and she said, well, she's a woman. And he had asked who was in front of him. Was it a male or a female? And that was so, it shocked me so much that it was just astounding, because I didn't realize that people couldn't see me as a physical person, and B, that I was either a male or a female. So that's one thing that started me thinking about the presentation I had in my life to be a male or a female. And of course, then I would look around and see, and the years I spent with the Mandali, it was clear to me that Mayor Baba, as this advent, had somehow put women in a very physical outpost. I mean, very visibly identified as important Mandali. Goher being the doctor, Mera, Mani. I mean, the placement of their shrines to the samadhi. The men were down the hill, the women were up the hill. So, it did cause me to think about this and kind of reflect on it. But until I start understanding years later the distinction of the balance of heart and head, maybe masculine and feminine, do we really understand the necessity to, or did I understand the necessity to have so many incarnations in so many places? I mean, in different forms that bring us to this place. So, I think from my perspective, I see people as souls. I mean, I really prefer to do that. I have a great friend who's a wonderful soul, and half the time I won't say it's a male or a female just because I don't want to have identified that onto them either. So, and because of the current movement for gender specificity or non-specificity, it's out of my upbringing and league, so I don't necessarily get it all right. So, but I respect it all. I understand what is happening in the movement that we're in, and I also can see right now a huge contrast with certain sectors of the population wanting it to go back to women in a specific role and men in a very dominant role. And so I think there's a huge conversation to
Yeah.
be had, and I'm just throwing things out there that what
Yeah.
I've felt over the years, you know.
Yeah.
So and inside myself now, I've lived a very masculine life, and I look very feminine on the outside in the presenting, but I've been a self-employed person. I wouldn't work under people. I'm very strong, very athletic, had been through most of my career. And I always wondered about that, you know, but it didn't matter to me. I mean, I just know that the drop soul that's in this body right now is using the body for whatever it needs. And I'll say with Ron, I agree. Each incarnation has to be designed and perfectly applied. And I don't know how much my contributing to my awakening helps, but holding him close as I can, you know, doing whatever I can to be in a loving way, which has been really difficult these past few weeks. You know, a lot of things come up, and they aren't qualities that I'm real happy with. So yeah, it's interesting. I never had
Yeah.
children, so you know, I'm also on that part of a feminine that held back from that. So anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just
Beautiful. Yeah.
it's interesting to me, to this topic. Yeah. So anyway, J.
Yeah.
Bob,
No, you brought up yeah, some of the spectrum.
yeah, it's just
of-
so full, you
and,
know.
yeah. And more
Yeah.
so today, I would say.
Yeah, more so
Yeah.
today. The young people have got a lot of shifting where we did not. I mean, I can see a lot of change happening right in front of me all the time. So
Yeah.
anyway, looking forward to hearing what people say. Jay Baba.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Patty.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, first of all, there's two things that rarely do Baba people talk about. One is money, and that involves your ego and where your place is in the world and blah, blah, blah. So skipping all that, we go to sex. That's number two for sure. And no Baba lovers like to talk about it. And the reason is because it's very obvious. It's male and female, or energy, which is moving forward into the world of creation materiality, or energy which is receptive to that movement. And usually we call that male and female. Obviously, we have body forms that identify. And Baba says sex energy goes all the way. You're not going to get rid of it. The key psychologically to me is don't repress it, but how do you deal with it? I've had extraordinary, extreme karma with these kinds of energies. And none of it for me has been very successful. Only in the last few years have I really begun to do what you were talking about, Jeff, and that's try to feel while I'm looking at, or while I'm seeing or thinking about women and their energy. And the way that's happened for me, it really, honestly, that sense of love came through dogs first for me. But then I began to realize that women who are mothers are completely different. They're different animals, and they don't, probably I don't think like them, but I can see that that energy is so vital. It's so important to human nature that it's actually extremely magnificent. It's really beautiful. So I've begun to slow down to appreciate that more than any single thing. Then it leads directly into what I think of as femininity. But what Baba says is very clear on this, and that's that it all depends on your sanskaras. You know, if you've been a mother 100 million times and you're tired of it, you're born a woman and you don't have kids. Okay, you know, it's just the way it is. You know, and if you've been a father and been responsible for 10 kids at a whack, it's like, I think I'll take a break, you know. But in this world, you're all right. But again, if you look out in the world as a very hetero world, and I mean that by that, I mean all kinds of sanskaras. I don't mean just sex, but there are people who are just dumb. There are people who are so overburdened with their initial load of human sanskaras that you and I, we don't even think of them as human, not really. They're slugging it out somewhere down below. We're lucky we don't have to deal with a lot of that. you know, well, you see it and hear about it in the world all the time. But so, and when it comes back to sex, in my experience, I have to make a footnote here. Marta's story about her coming to Baba and all that entailed really struck me as one of the most honest, open admissions of sexual experience as a Baba lover that I've ever heard, period. I was so impressed by it. And I have such a deep affection for her for expressing that. This was a long time ago now, probably a couple of years. But anyway, moving on, there's also romance. I've always been this idealist in my head. Things were black and white when I was younger. But moving on from that, I've had a couple of relationships, you might call them that. But more than anything, I began to realize deep down inside, I had this masculine energy that was not really what you call kind. I think that a lot of my sanskars still are about using women for sexual gratification, not now, but you know, when I was born, I had this stuff rocking and rolling, you know, all the time. And I had a girlfriend in high school for a while. And I guess where I'm going with this is it's been a very long journey for me. And every time I've tried to connect, there's usually been suffering involved. And I mean suffering, you know, in one form or another. And Baba's used it to expose to me, you know, some of my not so spiritual qualities. And so with that in mind, there is something in astrology that works much better for me in terms of the idea of male and female. And that's literally, honestly, it's the planets Mars and Venus. And Mars is a very I-natured planet, and everybody has it. So you can see that Mars energy in women, you can see the Venus energy in men. And when they're, and I don't mean to make this about astrology, but when those energies come more into balance in either person, you'll see this more spiritual nature rising up from the whole personality core, I think, and the way that you involve yourself with others. Now, since I'm an old guy and I come along with all that, I expect my next incarnation is going to be a little more balanced, just out of wisdom from this one, if nothing else, and Baba's influence, of course. But the last thing is, and I think Patty was really alluding to this. This stuff goes everywhere. I've tried to hit a few, she tried to hit a few, but in terms of Baba's darshana, which is Ward Park's terms, we are all on that path of adjusting to who Baba is. And what you said, I think it was you, Jeff, and Ron Greenstein anyway, is, no, Ron said it, there's a balance. Baba brings about this natural balance. And when you encounter other people, and I think especially Baba lovers in person, when you encounter other people, you really get a much clearer sense of relating to Baba. So I remember in the Denver Baba group, we always gave Baba hugs. Well, the astonishing thing was that in their Baba hug, you don't feel the sex part. You embrace the soul, you know, it's just a much higher form of contact, you know. But that's about all I have to say, but it's really interesting. And I like to hear deeper angles on this stuff, but the actual encounters that people go through, to me, must be really fascinating, because this is so deep. So I came up with this little idea because promiscuity has been so abundant in our world, and I participated in it in my time, that it's like each person has a big backpack. And so without marriage, when you encounter people and you get involved in any form of sexual contact, you reach into their backpack and you grab a huge wad of sanskars and put it in yours, and you don't know what's in there. You have no clue. And they do the same thing to you. Coming out the other end, it cannot be pretty. That's enough of that. Thank you.
Very
Very good. Very good.
And by the way, Rich, you'll be a vet in your next life, so you can hang out with dogs.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Tina,
Tina, you're on.
wanted to announce that Daniel Files went to Baba today.
Yeah, or yesterday or day before, I think. But yeah, pretty amazing.
Yes, we heard that.
He
But
was
I
a
do
young
feel
person.
my own feeling is that he's in a good place.
Mm.
I mean, I didn't feel the kind of tragedy that I might. It'd be an obvious thing to feel tragedy, but I feel like he's fine somehow. I mean, I'm in the center atmosphere, so you're a little more in touch with those things, I would say. But you know, for some reason, yeah, I feel he, he had plenty of time to take Baba's name and think of Baba and stepped right into his aura, I would say. But yeah, thank you. And now from Upper West Side.
Marian,
Go ahead.
what
Go ahead,
happened?
Marian. Yeah.
You are on mute.
Okay, I'm okay. I'm
There you are.
unmuted.
Good.
I've been trying to reduce this down. This is such an amazing topic, so big. So I'll just tell a few little stories because I really am prompted by a lot of you, and you, especially you, Rich. And that is, I grew up in the Midwest in the 50s, and I had no idea about karma, Meher Baba, any of that. And so I grew up with that. You're supposed to be girly, a girlish girl. And to get the right boy and all that kind of stuff. The boys had to ask you out to dance. The girls could not ask a boy out to dance. We could not wear pants all through junior high and high school. You had to wear a skirt and a dress. Even through the coldest winter snowy days, you couldn't wear pants in those days. So it was such a division, such a sharp division. Then that went into the 60s. And so I left there, I come to New York, and I'm going through that and all the spells up through women's liberation, being liberated, where we threw our bras away and we wore construction boots and turtlenecks and construction pants, And so we were getting liberated from all this. So I've been through all those phases. And so, and then I got into advertising. I was an advertising executive in a place. I was the only woman executive with all these men. And that was in the late 70s, early 80s, and through the 80s. It was so sexist. And I had to always be on my guard and I had to look just so. I had my hair just so, my outfits just so. And you couldn't wear pants right away, but it started changing about halfway through where women could then wear a nice tailored outfit, no jeans or anything like that. So I've been through every phase that you could be in. Then in being with Baba, I was able, as all of us, to look back. What was this life about? What were these parents about? What was I was doing with sanskaras and unwinding sanskaras? And it really helped so much, as well as I did the psychological work also, and all that inner exploration work. So now what I'm doing now is I'm very much I'm even writing some letters to some people about homosexuality, transgender is such a big topic now. And so Baba has in the discourse, as you all know, where if you've had many lives as a man, then you're going to be a woman, you're going to carry some of those traits over. And the same way if you've been the other sex. And maybe even, Baba even has in discourse, and maybe even wear some clothes like the other sex. So I thought, people need to know that humanity needs to know this is natural to have these kind of, different balances, of sexuality, of male, female, masculine, feminine. And so I've been I did write to one person. I'm now in the process of writing to another person from the unit. I'm not going to name any names, but writing about in the Unitarian Universalist magazine about the states that are so negative and discriminatory toward any people who are gay, trans. And so families are moving to other states where they're kinder. And I thought if these people knew about, if reincarnation was taught as a science, this would start leveling that out. people would learn how to raise their children in this way. They would learn how to know that you don't just know quite how your child's going to be. It would be so acceptable. And that's going to come down the line as we keep unfolding toward the new humanity. In the new humanity, that will be all very natural. And so I'm preparing on somebody who wrote this article. I'm going to write a letter, and in one letter I wrote to someone, I enclose some of Mayor Baba's from the discourses, and so, but I'm not inviting with any of these people a conversation, and I'm very clear in my writing and everything. And then the other thing that is coming up is that I belong to a senior center that's very intergenerational. So we're always having conversation groups with teenagers, preteen, and junior high and high school kids and all. It's fascinating. And I am slowly edging in, bringing in, say, oh, have you ever read anything about reincarnation? And this one girl said, oh, yeah, I did. And she was kind of interested. So I don't impose it. I'm very talented that way. I can edge in on things. I use my intuition, my guidance, that when this is taught as a science, a lot of this will fall into place around sexuality, around gender. So I just want to kind of end with that. So then, except I felt shy about saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. What the heck? I've gotten so old. I'm getting more bold now because I've just gotten to be ancient. I don't care much anymore. I care a little bit, but I'll blurt it out anyway. So I know that this life for me was completing with the sanskaras, and so helped having Baba's teachings about being a woman, giving my power over mainly to the man. Powerful women too, but mainly the man. And that was my marriage. That was my high school years. I was taught to do that. And all the pain that I went through in giving my power away. And so I was even given some past lives. I don't know the exact date, but it was probably 1600s or 1700s in England. And I was given past life experiences and shown how this has been my theme. I never had a past life shown to me about being a man. It was all women. And so now at this time, I'm realizing like, oh, I've completed some sort of sanskaric unwinding about a lot of this. And I was shown recently, I'm not going to go into details of it, my next life, I will be a man. And I was shown that. And I was shown what I look like. So there you go, So I thought, well, I'll probably be a gay man, I guess. And I don't know how fast I will incarnate, but I was shown that. And it all fits together. It all fits together as a science. And so I want to keep bringing that up in a very, very mature, mindful way about reincarnation.
Yeah, beautiful, Marion. Very good. Yeah. Yes.
Ralph?
Yeah. I have raised my hand after listening to Richard's what he had to share, and I was had to laugh at what he shared about what the sanskaric exchange related to the sexual experience or participation in sex. Intercourse. And long ago, I saw something and I mentioned it to people and nobody really seems impressed with the idea that I got from reading the discourses, but I never knew what they were. And the other day, I read this again to confirm it. And again, I've already forgotten where I saw it. But Baba did emphasize that he doesn't want his lovers to backbite, nor to slander or find fault with people, particularly with public officials and politicians, and people in power like that. Because he said that sanskaric exchange that one could imagine from the sexual experience, from sexual intercourse, that exchange as relates to backbiting and outwardly expressing in a negative manner in selfish manner, negative things about others. That exchange is far more sensitive and profound in backbiting than it is in the sexual experience, many times greater, that we take on the sanskar, that very thing that we are criticizing, that we, what do you say, being caustic or belittling attitude, then that we take it on. And will it be realized? Do you know it? I think it happens in such a subtle way. And I actually started trying to pay attention to myself when I do find fault, or get really passionate about not agreeing with something like in politics or government. And I haven't figured it out yet. I haven't caught it yet, but one has to take it into consideration because Baba has emphasized it, and means it's also a manner of expression of low desires. And Baba says that one achieves purity of character by essential to achieving purity of character is in Baba's 7 realities through not expressing low desires, that is essential to achieving purity of character. So
Okay.
it's hard to discuss politics without getting kind of passionate. It just sort of comes built in. But I think that may be part of the change that would be part of a new life, a new life, so to speak, that Baba talks about.
Yeah, no.
Humanity, yeah.
Let's see what Tony has to say. No, I know, Ralph's from Texas, so
sometimes Tony won't let me talk. He'll butt in the middle. I'm getting really wound up, and Tony will butt in, And I cussed him out the other night for doing that. And I was. Yeah.
Well, at least he's not backbiting,
So you stand your ground, but
okay.
not be angry, but to, what's the word? Detachment, bogus, or Jeff's word is mock anger. Try to develop them.
Yeah. Well, let's hear what Tony has to say about this subject.
I really like a quote that I've heard a few times in an astrology course I'm taking, workshop online. It quotes, I forget who he's quoting. Oh, it may be from the Karate Kid, but he said the best way to win a fight is to not enter it. So I'm going to take everything Ralph just said, and I'm going to try and practice that big piece of guidance I just heard today. Although God, everything in me wants to come back at it. Now that's Mars, speaking of Mars, but that's lower Mars. You see, the higher Mars is protecting people. It's living your purpose. But anyway, I'm trying to get back to where I finally had the courage to speak on this subject. And now I'm thinking of what political figures I want to backbite. All right, let me start where the first thought that I had also is it's a great subject. And the thing about it is, and it's the write-up is wonderful, but it goes to so many places. There are so many different facets of this, and uh, I'm not quite sure. And there's a lot I could share, sort of, I think. I mean, different as, but I'm just gonna put it in Bob's hands and see where it goes. Um, I think issues of gender and sexuality, I think, speaking personally, I think they will always be there on some level. I can't imagine a time when those um, will not. Maybe just because I have Scorpio rising, I don't know. But uh, I've experienced in my life some mm, peculiar things. I mean, I've always been attracted to women, from girls, from when I was little. And when sexuality kicked in, definitely. But my father died when I was in fourth grade, and I got a fifth grade teacher who thought she was an expert in psychology. And she told my mother that they ought to get me into the Boy Scouts because without a strong male figure, I was likely to grow up homosexual. Which is a horrible thing to do to a kid. Um, you hardly even know what homosexual is, but you know it's clearly it's something they're scared that you're going to catch, and but that lingered in the back of my mind long after I knew my own sexuality. Um, and part of it is because there has been an instinct in me to balance the male and female energies. Not so much sexually, but in the Jungian sense. Like there is a man, there is a man within every woman, there is a woman within every man. It's that part that, as Baba says in the discourse, that's not in harmony with the body that you're in, tends to get suppressed, and you can integrate it. And it's not that you flip over to the other. I'm not necessarily. I'm not. Each body person has their own journey, but so so let's see. One thing I know that I've never shared this publicly, which you'll hear why. But for a few weeks, I think it was when I was maybe 10, 11, 12. I don't know, around then, not more than that. Um, I remember when I was alone in the house in the afternoon after school, going up into my mother's room and taking out her clothes and trying them on, putting on bras and stuffing them. And I wanted to know what it felt like to be a woman, you know. Um, it was an important thing. Later, I was really kind of happy when Baba talked about that as a normal phase that one goes through. But it's similar to when my father had cancer, lung cancer, in the period just before he died. My mother was helping him. She had to lean on her to go down the hall to use the bathroom, and from the end of the hall, I started limping and kind of, like that. And he saw me and he thought I was making fun of him. But I was trying to understand what is he feeling and to do it through physically. So I think so with gender, there's that element can be there. Like I say, once my sexuality kicked in, my attraction was definitely to women. So, but also I had an empathy then for people who were gay, because it's like, wow, what a heavy trip is put on you, less so now, but particularly like you say in the 50s and early 60s. What else? What else? Um, Hugging at Baba meetings. Um, I did have a soulmate sort of relationship with someone who I met at a Baba meeting. And we had a second that we met before the meeting started, and afterwards people would hug after Ken Moore's talk. And it wasn't a sexual hug, but I picked her up and swung her around the room. I don't know where that came from, except there was a karma, there was a connection, there was a relationship. Only later did the physical element just naturally kind of come into play. Um, uh, all right, why am I going there? Oh, the thing also about how men treat women. Now, I was I'm not, I really had a problem with people thinking I was wimpy. But I am not one to want to fight. At one day, I was fighting with someone in the neighborhood, and I just said, I don't want to do this. We would all have fights. The kids would fight, you know, it was a fun thing to do. And a day came where I said, I don't want to do this anymore. And I refused to fight from that point. But also in treating women, I would hear people say things like they'd be talking, oh, this is now as an adult, and as a married person now in this marriage, I'd hear women talking about issues that the things that men were doing in their lives. And I'm saying, like, I don't know what's the matter with them. Oh, you don't know. You're not like most men. No, you're like really hanging around with the wrong men. This is like, why is it accepted that you're going to treat another human being in a way that's going to be hurtful to them? You know, and I know that women who accepted that, and I would like women who I was attracted to, and would definitely go with the bad guy, the wrong guy who was going to hurt them. That leads to the other place that this goes. There's karma, and there's also your relationship with the parent of the opposite sex when you were a child. That those things also play out, and they're tinged with the questions of how you're expressing your gender and the opposite gender. And a lot of it comes out of woundedness that you've experienced, that your parents experienced. And then you never know when you could see someone and suddenly your whole soul wakes up, and that brings other issues. So this is like probably the most complicated subject.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's all I have to say about it.
We opened Pandora's box here. Yeah, let's thank Tony.
And there's an issue if a man is not balancing, so that this the male energy and the feminine, the gentler, considerate, and the more bold, I guess I'll say, it affects how the woman reacts. And if she's doing that, if she's coming from, instead of from, say, a gentler place, then a bold and harsh, more a non-integrated male energy, that also messes things up. So, and that's how we're learning. So it's like I say, it's a heck of a damn complicated thing you brought up this time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we have a couple of therapists here on the, you just text in your email address. Okay, let's see, Hardik.
So, is it my turn, right, Hardik?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I remember one funny incident when I was doing a job in 2008. I was staying with one fellow for a couple of weeks. And I happened to be sing a song, which is actually a feminine song, a female song. When I was singing that song, that guy interrupted me and said that, hey, you are singing a girly song. And I got like clueless for a few seconds, like, okay, what to respond? Like, he made me aware that, okay, you are a male and you are singing a girly song. So that was the first time, like, I realized that in the society, like, there are the things like that the man cannot sing a girly song. But I just responded that time that, okay, I don't find anything wrong in that, and I continue the way I used to be. But that was my first incident on this particular issue about male and female thing. But couple of months back, I visited Upasni Maharaj speech. Somebody has put it from some book. In that, he mentioned that the woman who has kept in a like, especially in India, I have seen, I don't have much experience outside India, but in the villages mainly where women are are living in a restricted environment, like they cannot go outside after dark, they cannot talk to any man outside their family circle. If they are going out, then they have to put a curtain in front of their face so that a man cannot see them. They cannot participate in the financial matter. They cannot take a big decisions. They have to always submissive and listen to what the other man says and decide for them. But the Upasni Maharaj mentioned that this particular situation is karmic, and it is because that woman in her previous life was a man, and she was very as a man he was dominating and and was going outside and done so many karma. it's it's his time as a woman to be submissive and just listen to what is happening to her. So now as a woman she will not be doing a lot of karma, but she will be just accepting the way of life as it is. It's a kind of like trying to balance out uh, between these two gender, using the reincarnation in the next birth. And I found this very interesting that time, because in our society there was a lot of discussions. It's happening that okay, women are now taking bold decisions, they are getting extrovert, they are participating in all the discussion, they are trying to compete with the men, they are becoming very strong headed. And I always felt that yeah, that's a good thing actually if that is the case. But when I heard about these particular discourses, that justifies me that if woman is happen to be in a situation where her life is like that, that is also acceptable and nothing wrong in that. I hope you're getting what I'm trying to drive the point here.
Yeah, no, yeah, sometimes it's karmically determined, and it's not, you're not as free as you might think to change your situation due to what the way you have behaving in your past.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, Hardik.
Thank you.
We got a couple of
Okay.
ruffians here from Asheville.
Hello, Jan. So I identify as non-binary. I identify as he, she, they, and I present as he, but I consider myself much more they, being very balanced, gendered in this life, very balanced between male and female. When I first came into this life, I had memories of being female. I did not know I was male until someone told me that I was male. And I enjoyed having baby dolls, and I wanted to do cooking and art and all of those things. And I feel like my journey that Baba gave me this life was to really embrace my body in a male body, and to be able to really understand what it's for me, what the balance of genders feel like. I'm a healer as well. I work with voice, and that comes in very handy in my profession because I can be with a woman and fully present as woman with her, or I can be with a straight man fully present as a man with him. And this is it. It is depending on who I am with, and I feel like Baba has given me, at least in this lifetime, a real deep understanding of when it comes to gender, it's about qualities. It is the qualities of Baba. Baba had qualities of male, he had qualities of female. There's plenty of stories with him letting his hair down with the women or putting it back in a ponytail and tucking it in with men. And so for someone that identifies as non-binary, of course, I see Baba as non-binary. You know, but I take Baba as what I am. and you, as a straight man, you take Baba for what you are. And so yeah, I think this is a very interesting conversation, but it's more about qualities than it is about who I'm having sex with. This is really, and gender is not about sexuality at all. Those are two very different things. So we could leave the sexuality aside and really just talk about gender. So I wanted to share my understanding of my own life experience, and how when we look at it as just qualities, the qualities that Mara had, the qualities that Baba had, these are all qualities that I work on embodying. And yeah, so what do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I would just add, when we came to Baba together, we heard all the stories of Baba's very clear expressing of love for his LGBTQ lovers, exactly as they were, like as in his letter to Quentin Todd, where Quentin was hating on himself as a gay man, and Baba wrote to him and said, "I love you exactly as you are," and really supported and loved and nurtured him in trying to be a whole human being around that. And Mara, in her support for trans Baba lovers that she was around, in being very direct in her support and her love and her tenderness for them. One of the stories that Brad referred to that meant the most to us was our dear friend Elisa was with with Mani on Mara's porch one time, and heard someone ask Mani, why does the avatar always come in a male form? And Mani's answer was, well, we don't actually think of it that way. We don't actually think of him as coming in a male form. When he was with us on the women's side, he was one of us. And he would let his hair down. And we never thought of him as different from us. And when he was on the men's side, they would feel like he was one of them. And I know from all of the LGBTQ people who were around Baba during his life have said they felt like he was one of them. There was this deep feeling that however you were, in whatever gender and whatever sexuality, Baba was a mirror of the deepest truth of your own being. And you were completely at ease and completely natural. So that story really, it settled the fears and doubts that we had to know that Baba is not just male. Although his body may have been biologically male, Baba was all of us, and went to great lengths, to extraordinary lengths, to every human being that he met, so that they felt like there was nothing that separated them from God, because he was their own intimate beloved. That's all. Thank you.
Beautiful, both of you.
Oh, Charles's talk that he did in New York, he said, Baba always likes to throw a little spice into it all, and so who knows what he's coming back as the next avatar. He might, we joke that he might come back as a woman, just for the new cycle. So, but we don't know these things.
Thank you.
Oh, so beautiful. Yeah. Well, beautifully expressed, and yeah. So we had somebody else up there besides Rich. Who was the other one?
I think it was Bob.
Oh yeah, Bob.
Yeah, Hunter and Brad expressed it perfectly. I mean, this is it seems to be such a complicated topic to sort out, but that's only because, well, Brad used the word qualities, and that just nailed it. I mean, what Baba is talking about, and what you quoted, Jeff, was not male and female, not gender complications, but masculine and feminine qualities that all of us have within us, and they need to be balanced. It's like the balancing of the head and the heart. And I mean, you know, how does this, and trying to figure out how that applies in one's life, how it has applied in, you know, my life when I was younger, and how it's applied now, and how those things can be balanced. It's, I'm not quite sure how that all works out. I mean, when I think about myself as a fourth grade teacher, the school I taught in, all the teachers were mostly women. And some of them were very strong, willful, extremely intelligent women that I sort of, well, here I am, and I need to follow their directions because they were much better at this than I was, especially as a beginning teacher. So I learned a lot from them. And at the same time, a lot of my students, I really felt an empathy for a lot of my students. And a lot of them, even when they came in with their parents for parent conferences, a lot of my students would want a hug. And I never hesitated to give my students a hug. There was just a tremendous amount of love there. And so, well, I don't know. The main point is that these are qualities that need to be balanced and brought out and worked on, so that we can accept each other more and more as who we are. I mean, Bob himself said he was both father and mother. There's this, so it's like, how much more balanced can one get? Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks. Going back to what Tony was saying, that in this new book about Erich, when he was young, he would dress up in saris and everything and silk things. So, and even Ramakrishna. So, as part of the whole thing is to get in touch with some of the softer, whatever, feminine side of our nature. And that's one access to it. And Baba himself talks about that in the discourses.
Krishna's Arjuna was known for that too.
Oh, uh-huh.
I wanted to mention one more thing. I've been going to it's a private, but they do dentistry and medicine. They do dentistry at a discounted price according to your income. So I've been going there for a long time, and everybody in there was a male doctor, and he retired. And so the newest dentist I went to, she was as petite and feminine as you might imagine Marta is. But I'm telling you, talk about a amazing professional. Well, when I was growing up, all dentists were male, and you'd spit in a little round circle and then have a little rinse there and all this stuff. And so here I am, and I was looking up at her while she was doing an incredible bridge in my mouth. And I'm going like, oh my God, it suddenly dawned on me. Now she wears those two eyeball glasses, so you can't see it. But then she was doing this very, very precise work on fitting this bridge exactly into how my teeth are, right? And I'm looking up there, and after she was done, I said, I just realized you have really long eyelashes. And she took it as a compliment, because she did. Most women don't have quite that. But talk about an incredible dentist. Just incredible. Well, that's way out of what I grew up with. That's way beyond that. I mean, totally beyond that. And it just goes to show that she was allowed to use her skills and her mind and her, I'll say Mars energy, if you want to call it that, but all of her abilities to become a member of society, which from 70 years ago is completely non-traditional. And but the other thing is that, yeah, I think I personally am a little bit of a sad case. Baba has worked hard on me, and sometimes he's had to use a mallet instead of whatever might be gentler. But I sort of, the first time I met, I have to say this because it just occurred to me, but the first time I met Jeff was a long, long time ago, but then I re-encountered him at the center. And over the years of seeing him, and he worked real closely with a girl named Anne. And I always noticed that they had an extreme friendship, I'll put it that way. It was a very tight bond, I think. But it was never, there was always Baba's love involved. So I think what all this is Baba himself said, the avatar doesn't really have a sex. You know, perfect masters don't really have male or female. But I noticed between Jeff and Ann that the way they worked together, whether it was cooking a communal meal for everybody that was there or whatever they were doing, Jeff treated her in a way that, in terms of men and women, that I don't think I'd really seen exhibited as clearly before in my life. That's a compliment, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. I'll settle with you later. Okay.
That's Sagar.
But yeah, one nice thing is we're on the same page as far as the approach with the guests. That was the thing that we shared. Very much the same, and kind of inherited from the Mandali, I would say, in that tradition. Okay, let's see.
So, if you read the story of Babajan, so before she became Babajan, she was Gulrak. So she traveled to Makkah in the guise of a man, right? So, and then when she came to Pune, when people would call her Mai, she would get very angry and she would say, "You fool, I'm not a woman, I'm a man." Because her consciousness reflected, the thing of a Purush, which is the masculine principle, over Prakriti, which is the feminine principle. So when she attained that state of Kutub, perfect master, she never identified herself as women. She always identified herself as the man,
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and I guess you're saying kind of as she approached realization, the masculine principle was more dominant in her, so that's how she wanted to kind of be identified.
Well, I mean, even Muhammad said, right, the lover of the world is woman, and the lover of the paradise is eunuch, and the lover of God is man, or something like that. When
That might not go over big today, but but yeah. Anyone else? We're kind of coming down the home stretch here. We haven't heard from Goer. I mean, be just curious.
I don't have much to say on this topic, Jeff. I've been enjoying it, what everybody's shared, and a lot of it is very, resonates with me a lot. So I'll just leave it at that. I just don't have much more on this topic.
But yeah, it's I know it's
I'm still learning.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think Baba people have been with Baba for a long time. You just relate to people as people, and a lot of the gender, who their gender is not as predominant. You kind of get to know their personality. Their personality is more dominant than their particular gender.
Yeah.
What about Hunter and Bradley? Any other kind of further comments that occurred to you?
I'll just speak from within myself what my experience is. As I am getting older, I can feel myself moving more towards the masculine. That I can feel that when I came in, I was working through a lot of the female saskaras, going through puberty and having a lot of dreams of being female with a man. And but as I move into, I just turned 50, I can feel the masculine coming into a place that's much more grounded. And of course, having the knowledge that we have with Baba, we look at it as, okay, where am I moving to? What am I, as Mani said, what are you packing? What am I packing for this next life? And part of that is also working out the toxic masculine, that are working out those toxic masculine qualities so that I can embody more divine masculine qualities, especially looking at it being an American and being born during this period. What it feels like there's a purge of the toxic masculine. And so my job is to reflect on what in me is needing to be released and let go and given back to Baba, so that I can start to pack the qualities that are much more the divine, and much more aligned in Baba. So it's interesting in aging how the spectrum of female and masculine tend to move. So that's all I wanted to
Yeah,
add.
that's a beautiful way of looking at it. There's the kind of the divinely feminine and divinely masculine qualities, and then there are the more negative counterpart of those things. Yeah, it's a beautiful way to see it. Well, let's see. Um, let's get Marcia because she's hasn't spoken yet. Go ahead.
Well, when I grew up, I was really young. I'd play with dolls, and I was always had the idea that when I was, I would like when I was going to be a mother, I was going to get married and have children, and very feminine and all that. And as I've gotten older, I feel generic. I don't like to wear skirts anymore. I just feel like I'm just like both. I don't feel women. I don't feel masculine or feminine. I feel I just whatever. And I think in my previous life I was a man for sure. And I don't know. I guess I'm not going to go rambling because I'm not sure what I want to say, but I'll look in the mirror and I don't feel like I'm me anymore. I feel like I'm more, just more of person. Just sex doesn't really matter, but yeah. And then I'm noticing that as a woman, you know, there's just like that book, Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus or something. I think it's really true. And I don't think I ever really understood how in this life when I was young, how men think differently than women. And as a woman, I've noticed, yeah, it's different. It's just the way we think, how our brain works, like compartments, like women think differently and men we'll have like everything filed in boxes and men don't think like that. It's just different. It's but we need each other. Like, men need women and women need men. We need to understand each other better. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
There's just like a whole wide spectrum of, between the male and female qualities, and it's great to be able to kind of be familiar with everything in the spectrum. Let's see. Ralph, have you got something short because it's getting kind of late.
I'll just introduce it, and then because I don't remember the whole story, but a historical incidents of interest regarding uh, sex gender was the battle during the Bhagavad Gita. What was that battle called? Was that the Kurukshetra? Anyone know?
Mahabharata?
The
The
Ramayana.
bad
You're right.
the bad guys, Krishna's team, was Arjuna and the sons of King Pandu, the Pandavas were the five brothers. And the other guys were the bad guys. who made the Pandavas suffer a lot. They were all kings, and the bad guys put them into exile because the brother, who was the smartest of the Pandavas, lost everything to the bad guys through gambling. He was an addict of gambling, and he even gambled away their wife, Draupadi, to the bad guys, and they dishonored her by trying to pull her sari off, but apparently her sari turned out to be never ending. It never stopped unraveling. But during the battle, the bad guys put on the field who was both man and woman, whatever that means. And many of the good guys, warriors, were so honorable, they refused to fight a woman. And he was just killing everybody off. And nobody would fight against her. And this is a bad thing. It's taking a toll on us, the good guys. And they came up with a scheme to eventually, through some means, kill this part, who was called Sikandam, was the name of what is that sex if you have both sex, or born with genetically have both sexes. And she killed one of the best warriors they had, who was, I'd say, a rishi and a great warrior. So that is a good story in history of a difficulty, something of interest pertaining to sex gender, and pride and culture and all of that.
Okay, well, let's let's have a few moments of silence, and then we have a quote from somebody to end. Okay, Jai Baba.
Say yourself.
Jai Baba. Before we read a last quote, I think next Wednesday there's a heart meditation led by Stu Baker at 7 o'clock. Just to let you know, that's something I find very, very worthwhile. And for Baba's birthday, I mean the Sunday just before Baba's birthday, I thought it would be nice if people brought like a present of a song or a reading that they like, a story or a joke. Bring something that you can share as to entertain Baba. So I'll write that in an email, but I'm telling you in advance, so if you run across something that you like, you can check mark it, Okay, any last minute quote?
I have a quote, Jeff.
Okay.
Baba says, I am always with you, directing you as my vehicle. You are an instrument in my divine orchestra. Jai Baba.
Read that once again.
Sure. I am always with you, directing you as my vehicle. You are an instrument in my divine orchestra. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Yeah. Well, thank you for, sacrificing watching the Super Bowl game to talk about, sex, gender, and male and female and all that kind of stuff. And thank you, really. You guys were
Thank you.
very forthright.
Okay. Good night. Good
Yeah.
night.
Good night. Jai Baba,
Hey,
everybody.
Baba.
Jai
Have a
Baba.
nice week.
Jay
Yeah.
Baba, thank you. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.